Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're logging in from. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you're staying healthy and safe in this crazy time. And I hope, like me, you're wearing pajamas from the waist down, since we can do that here on Zoom. My name is Rochelle. I do business development for a company called Peppered. We are a marketing platform providing cultural venues with bespoke websites, ticketing, and marketing tools. And so today we're going to talk about data-informed websites, which really means how the heck can we use our data to benefit us and get the outcome that we desire. Yeah. I think a lot of us, we spend a lot of time and money on SEO. You know, we get our audience to our site, but then what? How do we keep them there? How do we get them to follow our customer journey that we are looking for the best outcome, whether that be ticketing, membership, fundraising, whatever it is that you're looking for as an outcome on your website. So with me is my colleague, Cohen Vanderpool. Not only is he our strategic director, but he is also the founder of Peppered. I'm hoping today he can give us some insights on how best to use your data, how to optimize your conversion rates. What do we do with all this data? It's one thing to collect it, but it's another thing to actually utilize it and benefit from it. But first, Cohen, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, about Peppered, your experience, and kind of share with us why we should be listening to you?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Rochelle. Bonjour à tous. So that's my French there. The rest is up for the translators. So my name is Cohen. I founded Peppered a little bit over 20 years ago. And like Rochelle mentioned, we are focusing on what we call marketing, so websites and mailings and everything that's connected to that. Our SaaS solution connects to ticketing software and to planning software. Well, we've been doing this for quite some time. But after some years, I think that was about 2015 or 16, we realized that all of our users were, of course, very much different, but also had a lot of overlapping challenges. So we figured out that that could have been probably a bit smarter than just build everything from scratch over and over again. So that's why we started a new Peppered, basically, and we introduced our toolbox. I will show you a little bit of it later for a better understanding. And it basically collective solutions to benefit cultural venues and for all cultural venues to create bespoke websites and mailings and use data, what we're going to talk about today. After the 5 years, we are now used by 70 venues in the Netherlands and Belgium, which is quite a lot because the Netherlands and Belgium are not that big. Starting this year, we want to make it available everywhere else. So I think it's really nice for me to also give a demo here at this conference, and I really look forward to anything you have to say about it. So definitely feel free to go wild in the chat, ask any questions or interrupt us a bit. So that's basically the Peppered as the location we are. So for that, I think back for Rochelle.
Yep, sorry, got it. Fantastic. Okay, so I'd like to get a little bit of audience involvement if we can. Please use the chat, but if you might have a reason that you're here at this session or something you want to get out of this, or maybe a hurdle that you're facing with your website, I'd love for you to share just a little bit in the chat, and maybe we can either address it right now, throughout the presentation, or maybe at the end, or if there's anything you guys want to talk about before we go into everything we want to talk about. I'll just kind of give it a moment. If not, I can be cheeky and ask my own questions. Nope. All right, that's okay. You can always throw it up there. So I'm going to be cheeky and set Cohen up for a spike of the ball. So I've had issues in the past with dropout rates. So what I want to know is, how do we use data to get people to buy tickets? Like, tell me about, how can I use this data? Okay, and then before you go in, we've got Emmanuel saying integrated knowledge about our community of users with what we publish online. That's fantastic. I think that's very important, of how do we use that knowledge, or how do we gain that knowledge and then use it?
I think we're going to have a bit of a talk on that later on. So that's an excellent question indeed. Yeah, so let's we divided this presentation in a couple of sections. So this first section is about the general analytic data and how to use it, and going into what Michelle asked, the dropout rate. Looking at where we're based, so Pepper being used for websites and mailing. Of course, we also use tools like Google Analytics and Hotjar to gain understanding of how people and how our visitors move around on the website, what they are doing, and that's one of the important datas already there, and we use it mostly for CRO. I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with the term. For me, it was quite new a couple of years ago. CRO is about conversion rate optimization. So in really short, it's not only about how to get people on your website, but if you have them on your website, how do you make sure that they convert? So how do you optimize people actually doing what you were hoping that they would do? And tools like these are excellent for it, because you can measure what they are doing, and then you can experiment and improve on that. As Peppered, we update our tool every 3 weeks. So we continuously try to improve and see what's happening or things. So I'd like to share one of the things that's a really clear example of this, and how a tool like Analytics could already help you to pinpoint dropout points or pinpoint something interesting. But immediately there's the first challenge, because the danger is that the data seems to be telling you something and that you want to act on it immediately, but it's not always the case, of course. So really you would have to investigate. So as an example, we look at the order process. Obviously, we want people to buy a ticket for any ticketed event online or offline, and also not really big surprise, we saw that the login part was a big dropout point. But the interesting thing about this was not only to see, okay, it's a dropout point, so we should skip it, but maybe first investigate a little bit more. Why is it a dropout point? What is happening there? Is it because it's confusing, or what does it understand? So the pinpointing of the data should always be followed up with some qualitative research and also a better understanding of what was actually happening there. So we did that as well. I'm going to share you an example of how our tool used to work. It's changed now, but it's, I think, a really nice example of how we use that pinpointing, but then did some further research to improve it. So what we found, it was the old login. I hope it's readable for everyone. I think a similar page as you have seen on many websites. So you could have an account, or you could register for a new account, or maybe forget your password, that kind of a page. We found that it was especially confusing for people that didn't visit the website for a longer time. So maybe they bought a ticket for something half a year ago, then they revisited, and they were confused. Well, do I have an account? I'm not sure. So what should I do? And that was one of the main ideas, to investigate that a little bit further. So we talked to the box office employees and asked them, well, what kind of questions do people have, and what do they don't understand? And it was all the time the same thing came back, that people were just confused which option was theirs to choose. Whereas we, from a technology point of view, were figuring out, well, you know, if you have an account or not. but apparently if you don't log in somewhere, you forget. So the very first thing we did, and I think that's one of the major learnings from today. So if you forget everything else, remember this one. The best thing is to first look at your content, because that's very easy to change. It's very cheap to change, but it can have a major impact without having to build any functionality or do some extensive data research. Just the example we just had here. So what we did together with a venue in the city of Ghent in Belgium, we just tried different kind of texts. And then after trying a couple, we found that the bottom one was a huge improvement on people understanding. So instead of asking if people had an account, they were like, welcome back or first time here. And it seems quite similar, and it seems really a bit almost too good to be true, but this had a huge impact on the dropout actually. So I think it's also a good example of identifying with the analytics data and then trying something with the content and see if that improves. But the combination here is the quantitative and the qualitative part. Another example, which I don't have with me today, was that we also saw that there was a big dropout on the seating plan, where people were able to select their seats. And we investigated a bit further, but then we found that most people that dropped out weren't really a dropout in the sense that they didn't buy a ticket. Usually it was people that already bought a ticket, and we were just checking how the event is going, if there's more people coming, and like almost a pre-event excitement. Or there were also some people that didn't want to buy a ticket yet, so they would just check, so how many people are in there? Oh, I'll buy the ticket at the door later, I'm fine. So that told us that first we saw the dropout point, so that got us scared. We're like, oh, we have to change this page because it's confusing, it's not working. But it was not about functionality, it was really about well, why is it, and what should we do with that?
Cohen, can I interrupt you? We've got a question here. Are user tests and surveys part of your analysis, or do you get all your insight from the analytics data?
Yeah, that's actually an important question. The analysis and the tests and surveys, those really help to find where we should look, where we should do the CRO, but it doesn't tell us almost anything about why and what to do. So we always follow up with trying to find out. So maybe do user tests, but then with actual users there and see where they find a difficult spot. Or we also really like just to talk to box office people, because they are the ones that actually speak to people that need help or find out. And I think the third one, it doesn't sound really scientific maybe, but it's just trying stuff. So sometimes we just try stuff and we see if it works, and the stuff that works we keep, and the stuff that doesn't we skip, obviously. I think actually a nice example is in the next slide, the next example. Another thing we found is that, or we figured, so why are we actually making people logging in all the time? So maybe we could change it and make it more easy. Why do we need a password at all? So what we recently did is just skip the whole login part and replace it with what you're seeing here. We just ask an email address, and we'll do a confirmation authentication through email, and we don't need a password at all. It's just a secure, because most passwords can be reset by email anyway, but it saves us doing a whole lot of steps. So this was the functional and next step of the whole process, where we improved it further. I think the interesting thing is that the previous slide showed the old version, which we now really hate, but that we were really happy with it at one point in time. And same thing will be true probably for this step, where we think this is the best ever, but in a couple of time we'll find that there's a better way to do it. But that's part of the game, I guess. Moving on, another thing we found here. So okay, so we've made it more easy to log in, to be able to recognize people, which is really helpful for data, obviously, because now we know who's doing what. But then we also found, well, why do we even log out people at the end of the session? We should just keep them logged in at all times. I mean, Facebook does it, and Google does it, and YouTube does it. We can do it as well. So we did that, but then came the next problem. We found that after about a year and a half, some of our theaters were complaining that the addresses would be just wrong if people were to send out tickets. And because nobody had to log in or had to go past their personal data, nobody saw that their data was maybe outdated. So they moved to a different place and they didn't update it. So instead of going back to the old-fashioned login thing, is what we basically did is, I think it's the simplicity of it is really extremely nice. And here's the address of our product manager in the city of Delft in the Netherlands. At the point where people have to choose, do they want e-tickets or do they want the tickets at home? That's the location where we will ask the data. We'll just show it there. People will recognize if their address is old or needs to be changed, and then change it easily. So it's also about when should you ask something, and what should be there, and how not to add a step where we don't need a step or we don't want to go back to something. I hope this is a bit clear. So this is a really short example, two short examples of what we did at Peppert and what we noticed and what we found with those general data, and how you can use it in quite an easy way. And again, the biggest takeaway for me would be just start by changing text, changing your content, and see what happens. Yeah, moving on here.
So Cohen, tell us about algorithms. Is there a magic algorithm I can use that will allow me to target my audience to exactly what events they are looking for? You know, what's the magic pill?
Yeah, I'm really interested if there's any experience also in the audience today of you guys, if you have a good example of algorithms. What we did a couple of years ago now is we did a research together with the Breda University of Applied Sciences, university in Breda, obviously, city in the Netherlands. And we wanted to do some more research on algorithms and how to use algorithms and what kind of algorithm actually works. So we're all inspired by whatever was happening with Netflix, etc. So we figured out a couple of algorithms. We programmed them. We did some campaigning, some measuring, put a lot of effort in it, with together with the people of the university, but also in cooperation with a couple of Dutch venues. Basically, we found that the winning algorithm was sadly the random algorithm. So that was a bit of a disappointment at first, that we saw that the random algorithm was actually sometimes outperforming the highly sophisticated algorithm that we put a lot of work in. So it kind of made us think of the monkey doing the stocks story. We had some discussions and thinking about, so how can it be that we have these really nice algorithms and we put them into play and then we see what it does and it just doesn't work. What we figured, looking at the data we were able to collect, and also looking at the algorithms and what they gave us back, was actually that we found that there is just not enough events usually in a particular venue. So if you narrow it down to a venue, that there's maybe a couple of hundred events per season or per year. But as soon as you've had a little bit of data about that season or about those events, you are somewhere in of the season already. So you will have even less of those couple of hundreds. And if you could compare that to like what's on Amazon or what's on Netflix, etc., they have thousands and tens of thousands of products. We have a few hundred at best. Second problem was that the audience with sufficient data was definitely too small. So the number of people for one venue to actually buy more than one ticket is just too small. So it only worked for the heavy users. And then the third problem was that most of the venues participated, they just didn't sell enough tickets. Maybe they sold a couple of 100,000 tickets per year or per season, but if you narrow it down to a single event, then, well, one of the largest concert halls we work for has about 2,000 seats. That's about 2.7 seats per order. So that's maybe a couple of hundred people as a whole in that location if you're sold out. So yeah, there was just not enough data to help this out, especially if you combine it with not giving an advice for an event that is like a day after another event that somebody bought a ticket for. And if you narrow it down for those events that aren't sold out, and then quickly the random algorithm really works just as well as any complex algorithm. So I'm going to save you a lot of money here. Don't spend it on trying to build fancy algorithms to create a bubble for your audience. We did it, we tried it, it didn't work. So basically we're saying that don't try to be Netflix if you are a cultural organization. I think there's another thing in here as well. Why we were actually a bit happy that the algorithm didn't work, because it also feels too much of a bubble and not really the way we feel a cultural venue should be like, because it's not about only throwing events at the audience and then hopefully people are going to buy those events. I think there's much more to a cultural venue than that, and I probably don't have to convince you people here. It should be much more about the stories and how to get those stories to that audience too. So big learning to us. I'm interested if somebody has a different experience than what we found, then please do share and give us that secret algorithm that does do a lot more. Yeah, that was our finding.
Cohen, I've got another question from the audience from Carlos. Do you consider exchanging information across venues in the same region a valid strategy to overcome the lack of sufficient data points? Interesting.
Yes and no. It depends on where you want to use it for. We definitely, we use that data in that kind of way, definitely. I think that's really interesting, give you really interesting insights. As everything the audience AG can show you that they're actually doing, but it's about getting that data in, and then you will definitely get interesting insights, but it won't be able to easily narrow it down to generate an algorithm to specify which events people should buy. And also we do feel that that's just too simple. Maybe even it should not be about, oh, buy this event, but maybe it should be a bit more about why should I buy a certain event or a certain type of events. So definitely does work to do it that way, and it helps a lot, but not for the specific type of algorithms to throw events at people in our experience, at least. Yeah, so.
All right, so shall we talk about CRM data? So, okay, I'm not Netflix. I don't have all the data in the world. So how can I use the data set I do have to achieve what I want to do? How does that work? Oh.
And question? No? Sorry,
it's from Simone, but it's in French, so I'm not sure if it's a... Oh, he's just translating the last question.
Yes.
Sorry, getting used to this. Okay, perfect. So yes.
All right. So yeah, I think now we're getting to the interesting part of what we do with data, and it also kind of connects on the question by Carlos earlier. So how do we use the data? Because there is a lot of data. We can even connect it to people, especially if it's on a website. We know if they visit the homepage, what they click, when they click it, what they buy, etc., etc. And if we are able to combine that information across venues in a region or also outside a region, because we also find that people are people everywhere, and the number of times that any venue told us, well, we're different because our audience is a bit older than the other audiences at the other venues, then yeah, that's I mean, people are the same everywhere, and even old and young are also kind of the same. It's really more about what you offer them, but still. So moving on to that kind of data and how to use that kind of data. So again, Peppered, where we are here, I think the connection with ticketing, and sometimes there's a separate CRM system analyzing the data or segmenting that data connected, like the audience finder and the audience spectrum. So how can we actually use that data in an interesting way? Also given the fact earlier that we found that the algorithms weren't the way we wanted to go. So we figured what does work. Like I said, the cultural organizations are more than a location, at least in our opinion, of course, because it's not just a bunch of events in a certain location. Usually there's an idea about those events, why this collection of events, and how, well, what does it mean, and what's the story behind it? Secondly, we strongly believe in curated content, so not just data spit out, but content created by people that can tell the stories, that can share the stories, but then obviously delivered to the right audience. So that's the key thing. We're going to into that. And I think, Rochelle, this is your favorite abbreviation, the KISS, keep it simple, stupid, is also really important, because people won't read long text on websites, or shouldn't overcomplicate your personalization, because you can hire like 1,000 people to over personalize everything, and maybe you sell 5 tickets extra. It's just not worth it. So that combination was an important beginning, together with the other thing we also found, also talking to for instance the audience agency. So it's easy to collect data, and it's easy to answer a lot of questions, but the hard part is actually, so what questions do I need to ask, and what are the goals that I want to reach with this personalization? I mean, it's not about the technology itself. The technology is just a tool that we use. Same goes for the data. It's the focus shouldn't be on collecting the data or doing analysis, except if that's your job, of course. But as a cultural organization, the focus should be also, what do we want to reach, and where do we need it for? So some examples, but any other ideas are very much welcome to add in the chat. You can use segmentation, of course, for campaigns, memberships, fundraising, and well, basically a million type of things. So please do add your ideas in the chat. We can talk about those later and how we can use it. Here's the point again. So use the aggregated data, cooperate. So basically Carlos read our mind with this presentation. I personally really like the audience agency audience spectrum. I'm not sure if you've all seen it. What they did in short is collect data from a whole lot of cultural organizations in the UK, aggregated it and combined it with other sources and created the audience spectrum. I'm not sure how much, but of how many, I think 8 or 10 different cultural types. And that can be really helpful with your personalization, of course. And that's how you could use that same data. So not maybe use it for one-on-one algorithms following events, but definitely use it for analysis of the audience, connect other sources, if not other organizations that are similar to you, and then figure out what type of people are visiting you and who is who. So what we did at Peppered, and I think it's something that you could use with a lot of different tools as well, is how do we connect the content, the curated content we have, the stories we have, the meaning behind the events that are actually programmed, and all that ticketing data and segmentation and CRM insights. The solution we found, and I'm going to demonstrate it in a minute, is quite simple actually. We call it visitor tags, and visitor tags are nothing more than tags connected to your visitors, and a tag can be as membership, can be first-time user, or can be is recurring user, or can be visits on a Tuesday, or can be is audience spectrum type A or B, etc. Second part would be to devise strategies for these visitor tags. So what to do with them, how can we reach those goals mentioned earlier, and of course convert these strategies to digital marketing solutions. So that's basically describing what Pepper does on a daily basis, and make sure, and that was the important part, of course, how are we able to make it so simple that it's actually usable? So you don't have to be a mathematician to figure out how to do this, or you don't have to be an experienced software developer to connect content like that, or really expensive. So we try to build it as simple as we can, which I would like to show you in doing the very unwise thing, namely do a live demo during a session. So I'm tempting Murphy's Law here a bit. So first step, I'm going to try to stop this share and then add a new share to give you a quick feel of what we did at Pepper. So again, it's going to be short because we don't have a lot of time and you're not here for that demo, but it will help explain a bit of how we did what we did, and hopefully inspire you to use that experience and go on. So the examples I have are not all in French, unfortunately, also not even in English. This beautiful language here is Dutch. I hope you can see my screen here. I opened up the website of Muziekgebouw aan het IJ. It's actually on really close by where I'm now. I'm here in Amsterdam North, and it's just across of the IJ River is the Muziekgebouw, a beautiful location. Just to go with a couple of examples, this is a theater Rotterdam, close to our office, and here's the National Theater in The Hague. But also found one in French, the Royal Flemish Theater, if I translate it correctly, in Brussels. And I just opened up a couple of websites to quickly show you what we did. What we did is, like in the beginning, we said this is a SaaS model. So that means that we created one toolbox, one tool for all of these venues. And from that toolbox, they create their bespoke websites and mailings. Luckily, you will see that they're very much different. They don't look exactly the same. And some of them have really beautiful content. The way we did it was create the parts. So basically every bit of functionality, every bit of design thinking, we have put it in a part, and with those parts you create those bespoke websites. And the nice thing here is that we are able to add parts, to upgrade parts, to change parts, make sure that they work for the blind and the hearing impaired, that they work for SEO, for Google, etc., but also add functionality to it. So the examples I have here, these are just the home pages, like this large image of the Royal Ballet. This is an excellent spot ready to personalize and to make sure that maybe this is visible to me, but to a next visitor, we could show something entirely different. Because whatever we thought of as a funnel. So to quickly show you how we would do that on the back end, one thing I forget to mention here is what you might be able to see is that I explained before that you will remain logged in. So I just opened this website. Actually, I opened it a couple of minutes before starting this presentation, but I just opened it today. And because I have logged in here before, I cannot admit that I've bought a ticket at all places, but I did definitely log in on the websites. They will, oh wait, let me open the French one for all the Canadian viewers, just to show you that the website will recognize who you are. This is connected to the ticketing system, the box office system. And that helps obviously to collect data, but also to understand who is visiting this website. And if we know who is visiting and what visitor tags that person has, we can easily personalize. Let me show you this in the platform. So I won't go into any of those websites because they won't like me for changing their websites, of course. I need to log in here. So this is the backend, the dashboard of what the Peppered users would log into. On the left-hand side is all the modules. On the center part is the release. So like I said, 3 weekly updates. So this is where we communicate what was actually updated and what are maybe some new parts or changes. A very boring one here because we did a spring cleanup with some technology stuff that's not interesting to mention. Still queuing module and a lot of stuff I don't have time for. If you are interested, drop us an email or connect and we'll happily give a full demo of the system, of course. But what I wanted to show you here is those banners on the homepage. So this is the system for the test tool, so it's not the same images, obviously. But I set up 2 showcase banners, as we call them. And I just wanted to show you how easy it would be to personalize any of these. So these are visible to everyone. But if I would go into a banner and then use the visitor tags I mentioned before, I can just very easily add a visitor tag here. Me telling the system, only show this banner if somebody's recognized as a test or recognized as something PREG. Don't know what it means, but somebody's been testing here. So this could be bronze member, this could be friend, this could be cultural segment A, etc., etc. And this is all you have to do to personalize. So it's really about what kind of content do I have, for what audience is this meant for, and then this is the way you could personalize it. So it doesn't have to be overly complicated if you have the proper segmentation and have the right tool for it. I could show you. Well, I'll show you just a fast one. Same holds for the pages, and you could create like an online brochure maybe, and then maybe a part of that particular page, you can do the same thing and then personalize it in the way I just shown you here. But let me stop this demo. That was the shortest demo of the Pepper tool ever, I think. So I hope it was okay. And let me go back to the presentation. Hold on.
Are there any questions at this point about kind of how to use visitor tags or what Pepper does? That's okay. Ask them when you need to.
I'll just move on. So yeah, then comes of course the question. So how to use them and what kind of things could we do? So I think the most important thing here is to start small. But at the same time start big. And with start small, I mean that don't overcomplicate it. Don't create like 20 different personalized banners at the same time, because you will go crazy with all the work and it won't be possible to measure and you won't get the data. And it's just too much as a beginning. But at the first steps, the personalization and using the data, the most interesting thing is to create the larger and more long-running campaigns. So obvious examples would be a membership funnel. So how would I get people to become a member? And maybe within membership, there's like a bronze, silver, and gold or anything similar. So how would I get them from bronze to silver? And how would I get them from silver to gold? The way we usually do that is by simply start with handing out the visitor tags. So you could use data and segmentation. So who would be a proper candidate for bronze members? So maybe as simple as everybody that visited the venue at least 4 times last year could get a tag, a potential lead for becoming a bronze member. Then we could set up the homepage or a different page with a banner, basically an advertisement about the bronze membership that you don't want to show to everybody that just visits the website for the first time, but do want to show it to people that that could be interested in becoming a member. And then make sure that the banner connects to a page where you can explain a bit what it does. Well, same thing. Obviously, if you are a bronze member, you will get the banner for silver member with another page, and so on. And using a method like what we devised, you can make sure that those pages are only visible if you have that visitor tag. So if there's any sensitive stuff out there, you can make sure it's not just visible to everyone. Another important example would be fundraising. Same thing applies. So figure out who should get the label to be interesting for a fundraising lead. And then if they create a page, if they did donate or do whatever, then what is the next step? And again, try to think of certain funnels. And the nice thing about those funnels are that you can create them and you can just leave them out there for years to come. You don't need to recreate them every month. You don't need to think about them every day. You don't need to spend a massive amount of work. You can just set them up. Make sure that you can hand out those tags, preferably automated, or if not, using a simple query in your CRM tool or your ticketing tool, and then let the system just do its thing like you set it up. Another example that we also seen a lot is we call them, I don't know if it's a proper translation here, but sliders, like where children would slide down to. So we have sliders for certain segments. So maybe family oriented would be a slider, and you could again do the same thing. If you have a certain interested curated content on that subject, make sure that you create a good page where there's some additional information, where people can make the next step, and then set up a banner that will show to them specifically. So if you did set up those funnels and you have this running and you feel like doing more, only then start with targeted campaigns that are smaller. So maybe you have any given campaign or something coming up where you would send an email to a segmented group of your audience. Then that is an excellent time to also hand out visitor tag to those recipients of the email, because if they visit the website, you can make sure that they also get the campaign content or image or whatever, again, directing them to a certain page and make sure that they go towards the conversion that you want them to go. So it could be tickets, could be subscribing to a newsletter, etc., etc. And then personalized accordingly. So then you have set up long-running campaigns, and after that, the short, more targeted campaigns. Then we go back to the data at one of the first steps and back to CRO, and also how we feel you should use that personalization and look at that personalization. So you've set it up, but obviously you need to check if it works and if it does what you want it to do. So say your conversion goal is to sell more tickets, kind of a basic thing that probably everybody would want to do. We're saying that, okay, so you have a campaign for that, but don't measure if you're selling more tickets to validate that campaign, because selling more tickets is a very abstract goal. You cannot force people to just go buy a ticket. If you could, then we may or may not have built a tool for it. But it doesn't make any sense. What we really like and prefer is try to measure micro conversions. So meaning, I set up a banner on the homepage. I'm not going to measure if through the banner people bought a ticket. I mean, that's all nice and all, but it's more important to find out, did they click the button that I set up for them? Did they go to that bespoke page for that specific goal I have? And on that page, did they click there to the next step? Maybe it is buying a ticket, maybe it is subscribing to a newsletter, whatever. But every single step is a micro conversion building up towards the end or the big conversion. So instead of measuring the end goal, do measure the small steps, because then again you can experiment, see what works, what doesn't work, change the text, change the image, change the video, change maybe the segmentation even. And if you improve all of those little steps, then you're doing CRO right, in our opinion. But then you're also finding out what kind of personalization actually works and helps you improve. So that brings us more or less to the bad news. Sorry about that. There's no free lunch. There's no app that you can buy and that magically uses data and then magically makes sure everybody buys tickets in massive amounts. And the other bad news is once you've set it up in a perfect way, which we try to do every 3 weeks ourselves as Peppered, then we find out that there needs to be improvement. There's something to change, there's something to add. There's always something new and always something better to be done. So I think that's also an important lesson. You should continuously work on that, and it will take work. People think that adding data-informed website means you have less work, but that actually means you will have more work because you have to think about all these different things happening and things you want to set up. Then, of course, you can leave you with just bad news. There's also good news. If you do that and you find that your micro version is working, or you change the text and you see that something is improving, that's actually really fun and very, very rewarding. So that's a nice thing about that. And it can be as simple as changing a text. Again, we don't always need a huge budget or a complex functionality. Sometimes just changing a text, see how it works, and very fun and rewarding. Doing that, it will also help you understand how your visitors think, how they behave, much more than an analytics tool will tell you. I mean, it will tell you where people click, but not what works and how to connect to them in a really interesting way. So it also continuously improves your communication. And if you need to, we are also here to help you out. So that's, I guess, also good news in the end. And I think maybe the bit of the message here is also that the data-informed website should in the end be about curated content. It should be about people, and it should be about the visitors and about what it means to be a cultural venue, and not so much about data and algorithms and technology and all that stuff. That's just the tools to help you do all the other stuff.
I would also include that it keeps us all in jobs. If the work is never ending, we'll always be working, yeah? So great. I don't know if we want to open up if there's any questions from what we've discussed. There hasn't been any recently, so we can maybe just kind of summarize everything you've talked about, and how do we get in touch with you if we need to? Yeah.
So to summarize a bit, then yes, please do drop us an email again. We'd be interested to hear your ideas or talk further, or if you want to of course give a demo of the system. But I think the summary in short is with the analytics and the general data, use it to identify, but always follow up with the qualitative research, be it a real life user test, but definitely also talk to the box office, because those are the people that know and that speak to the audience daily. Remember CRO, and remember that in my opinion, CRO is much more important than SEO and advertising and everything, because it's nice to get people on your website, but it's more important to make sure that they find what they need and that you actually help them convert to whatever you feel is important. And then do start with content and with text and images and videos before you go into functionality and changing your system. With the algorithms, in our opinion, don't try to be Netflix, but tell stories and think about how to connect those stories to the proper audience. And I think the main part is about what we feel is curated content, delivered to the right audience. Use cooperation and use the data tools like Audience Spectrum, Audience Finder, and start figuring out what your goals are. Is membership important? Is fundraising important? Probably all of the above. But then figure out, so what exactly do I want people to go, and what content and what stories could I use to let them do it? And then if you really are at the point that you can set up the personalization, then set up the long-running personalization first, collect the large data, helps you learn and understand how it works, how to improve, how to do the CRO. And when you get that finished, then add campaigns on top. Focus on the micro conversions. And yeah, remember again that it's not, there's no free lunch. But it is definitely very fun and rewarding to continuously improve and continuously look at data for your data-informed website.
Fantastic. Thank you, Cohen, so much for everything you've shared with us. If nobody has any questions, I suppose we can just say thank you. You know, please do email us, reach out, talk to us. Oh, there's a question. Just kidding. I wanted to know if your application centralizes the data between the site and the various interactions within the site, and if I can create my site within Peppered.
Have to. Could you read it again, please? It's a bit complicated question.
So, Augustine would like to know if the Peppered application centralizes the data between the site and the interactions on the site.
Yeah, well, the Peppered connects to the ticketing system, or maybe also to a CRM system. Peppered, you use Peppered to create your website, and with the parts. And you can use the tags to use it, but you can also use the general analytics data. So I guess it does. So in short, the answer would be yes, but it always operates within the space of also your box office system and also the aggregated segmentation tools and all of those other tools. And I think Peppered mainly focusing on how to actually use it. So to get all that interesting data, but now actually use it for your website.
So just to clarify for me then, so it's pulling all the data from the behavior that somebody is doing on the website, from their information they share when they buy a ticket, from anything it collects, it's pulling that together so you can use that information, right, through Peppered.
Yeah, I guess that, I mean, information can be creates an account for the first time, or revisits the website a week after the event that they visited, or is trying to buy this and this, or clicks on a certain slider, as I mentioned before, or clicks on a page for about the bronze membership or the silver membership. That's all data and all information that we can connect back to CRM system or segmentation tools, and obviously try to use it to improve the communication as well.
Perfect. And just to reiterate, yes, you can create your site within Peppered. That's one of the beautiful things about the system, is that you're actually building your website from there, and it's easy, and we help you as well. So, okay, so looks like demonstration will end in 5 minutes. So if you have any questions, there is a survey at the end as well. What about resistance from users to create an account? It's interesting. We probably have 30 seconds to answer that.
Yeah, I think, well, that's why we changed the whole account thing to what it is now. So we just left the feeling of an account. So it's not an account. We just asked them, so what is your email address? Because we do need an email address to send out e-tickets or to do at least something. And then we don't mention a password. We don't mention anything. We just authenticate using the email, and so that they won't feel as if they're creating an account. And we kind of made sure that we had best of both worlds. So we tested this in practice, and it gives us a very good results. But like I said before, we'll probably figure out something new and better in a while, and think differently about this.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Cohen. Thank you, Simon and Simone and the team for translating and for hosting us. I hope everybody had a good session. I hope you've learned something. I hope there's some takeaway that you gained that might be able to apply to your website building tomorrow.
Thanks a lot. It was I learned a lot. It was nice.
Fantastic. Good.
Great. Thanks a lot.